Welcome to Honestly Rated, and today we'll be talking about your favorite sneaky panther, Trap Shadow. When it comes to Trap Shadow, I truly don't remember if he's good or bad anymore. You know, it's been a while. I swear I seen something about maybe his upper half or bottom half one time, but I can't remember or put my finger on if he was good or bad. So, truly, there's only one way to find out, and that is going by his overall gameplay and design to really see if Trap Shadow was honestly ever any good. But before we go into the game side of Trap Shadow, let's talk about his lore and how he became a Skylander. Trap Shadow was part of an elite tribe of hunters that were really good at hunting. With his stealth, his traps, and overall just his cat-like reflexes, he was practically able to catch anything that he really wanted to catch. And with that, fame grew in Skylands about this man, and you know, with fame and anything that's good, obviously evil comes with it. The evil that came with was a bunch of evil wizards. Their plan was to get Trap Shadow to trap Master Eon by capturing Trap Shadow. Now, that does sound like a smart idea, but again, we're talking about the guy with cat-like reflexes, really good traps, and again, has the fame of being really fucking good and being smart. And that's kind of what happened. He outsmarted the wizard, he already knew that they were going to come get him, he caught all of them, turned them in, and Master Eon was like, yo, you saved my life, and, you know, you becoming evil at one point would probably not be the best thing for Skyland, so how about you join a Skylander crew? And that's what he did. With the lore out the way, let's go see how good Trap Shadow's traps really are. Starting off, we have Clawing Shadow and Shadow Kick. Trap Shadow starting off is honestly pretty simple. We have our simple primary move that has one unique thing where the initial hit, its little pounce, does the most damage, and you can loop these over and over again and just keep hitting. It also has a pretty significant hit stop where it can sometimes hit twice for a single enemy, or you can kind of space it around and hit multiple other enemies, so it's pretty cool. Then it also goes into a lot of smaller swipes that do less damage but are also quicker at 30, so not bad. Then we also have the Shadow Kick, which is somewhat of a projectile, more middle ground I would say. It does the most damage, doing 56, and with it, it also hits multiple enemies if you get them all lined up or in a big group, and overall, it's a really nice move. And I actually really like Trap Shadow in the beginning. Most melee characters always have this kind of funk to them where they just feel really risky in the beginning because obviously there's no other upgrades that they have right now, but for some reason Trap Shadow just kind of worked pretty well. I don't know what the factor was in it. I think it's just the damage of them, so yeah, pretty cool. Now on to Snap Trap. This is going to be our main projectile, and with it, it works out somewhat well. It's very simple, you know, you just throw it on the ground, throw it onto enemies, and if it connects, it will just start biting them, and it'll just kind of bounce around as if it has a mind of its own, and dealing damage of 22. It does have a, you know, lifespan, and it also has a life bar, so if it gets hit by an enemy, it will just kind of completely shatter. And that's something that I really like about Trap Shadow, is that he produces hit stun, since, you know, he was from that era, and with it, he kind of produces the trap to work better. If you throw it onto an enemy you're going to focus on, you kind of just stun lock them so they can't do anything, they can't hit you, and it just kind of allows for it to just keep nibbling. And since you're doing damage, it's doing damage, it just kills enemies really fucking quickly before they can do anything. And I really like it for that. But overall, again, fairly simple, not much to say about it, but it's good. Now for our next two, we have Sharp Magic and Catch. Here's a couple more we could speed through. First one we have is Sharp Magic. It allows us to do more damage. There's really not much else to say there. It's pretty good, you know. Anytime getting more damage is always good. And since he's a swapper, obviously he's going to have it somewhere. So, you know what? Yeah, cool. Whatever. Another one is going to be Catch, and this is one that I can actually somewhat talk about. Catch is allowing us to throw our traps anywhere we really want to. As long as you hold down that button, he'll swing it up and you can throw it further, you can throw it right up to you. It doesn't really matter. The cool thing about it though is that it actually does kind of give the trap a little bit of a damage buff. The reason being is that anytime you kind of have like a direct hit on an enemy, not like you have to like perfectly land it, but you know, like if it just kind of gets hit by the line of fire you're throwing it, it does 86 on initial hit. And that just makes it a lot better. So anytime you use Trap Shadow, make sure you wind up your thing. Again, it doesn't really even take that long. And you don't even have to like directly aim it at them. And as long as they're right in front of you and it hits them, you're doing 86 damage. Which can be like 126 if you hit a crit. So, you know, just make sure you wind up your traps, because they just do so much more. Now we go on to Feral Instincts with Meowch and Nocturnal Predator. The ability that we gain off of this path is that we're going to be able to juggle our enemies into the sky until they die. And honestly, it works out pretty well. The way it works is that anytime you pounce onto an enemy with square, then continue to hold square, you'll be able to do rapid swipes that allow you to just kind of juggle enemies in the air, and then by the end of it, we'll do one massive swipe that will launch them backwards. It's really great, honestly, because, again, we have that bear trap that likes to nibble on people, and if you just get a bunch of people to just kind of get holed in one single place, what can they do? Nothing. They just die. It's really actually really good for like big groups just because you're actually able to kind of turn pretty well. So if there's enemies beside you, behind you, in front of you, yeah, you might get hit a couple times, but overall it's a really nice tool to just kind of keep things at bay and not hit you, which is really good for a melee character. And overall, it's actually a pretty great path. Then the second one just kind of gives it more damage. Initially, it does roughly like 25. Then with that final upgrade, it does actually up to 32, which is more in line with how much damage you normally do if you just do normal hits. So, pretty cool. And overall, an actual pretty great move. Then we have the Trap Trickster, where we have Gloom and Boom and Make It Snappy. Our tricky little traps now have a little card up their sleeves, and that card being called Explosion. They now can go kaboom. And honestly, I really like this. It really made me play a different way with the traps comparatively to before, because before I had this upgrade, I would just kind of throw traps willy-nilly. I really wouldn't let the other one finish, because why would you need to, right? You could just kind of throw them at any enemy you wanted to. Anytime there's an enemy in front of you, fuck it, eat a trap. Anytime there's an enemy just pissing you off, fuck it, eat a trap. You just throw it whatever you wanted to. But with this, you really can't do that. The reason being is that, obviously, anytime you throw out a trap, it's not going to instantly explode. They're not going to let something that crazy just be in the game. So you have to wait a certain amount of time. Now, how much time that is, I couldn't really tell you. I don't really have a stopwatch out here kind of clicking down the seconds. But I can tell you, it's a good little bit amount of time. You can throw a different trap after, just a little bit, and then it will still cause the first one to explode. But you do have to wait for some time. And that kind of made me use the traps a little bit better. Because again, I wouldn't really let them kind of gnaw at people. I would just keep throwing them over and over. And I think that was losing value. So overall, this path just kind of made me a better Trap Shadow player in general. And again, it's great. It explodes everybody. It does pretty solid damage. It bumps everybody into the sky, just like the other one. But you don't have to be close to the enemy. And it's a lot more safer that way. In the same way that it could also just kind of clear out big groupings of enemies. So pretty great move, and I really like both of these paths. I think they both work out really well. I just really like the trap thing, just because also makes our traps do more damage overall. Now doing 29 instead of 22. So, I think this one's a little bit better, but hey, I think they're both pretty great. Now, here's a move you probably heard before, Shadow Striker. Shadow Striker is our soul gem, and the way it works is that anytime you get to the pummeling phase of our primary, you get to hold down square, you'll do a dash. This dash does 72 damage, pumps up enemies, and overall is a great time. It's a good way to escape things sometimes, just because you do have to do a swipe before you actually go and commit to the dash. So sometimes you get hit by enemies, sometimes you're not able to dash away fast enough. And it's kind of my main issue with this move is that I think Meowth and this move should have been swapped on what move you're supposed to hold down on. I think it makes more sense that if you do a pounce, you should go into the dash, and if you're doing all the cat swipes, you should be able to do the big cat swipe thing. Like, that just makes most sense, but what do I know? I'm not a game developer. Overall, it's a pretty great move. It leads into a lot of things, especially if you have that trap bomb, because, you pop up enemies, throw the traps on them, maybe dash them again, get them up there, fucking explode them, they go even higher. It's like fireworks. It's just amazing to watch. But, again, a Black Panther having dashes as one of their moves in a game. I feel like I heard that recently. Now we get to go on to the bottom half of Trap Shadow, starting off with Prowl. This is going to be the first mid move that we talk about, even though, generally, I guess it's really not that bad. The way it works is that anytime you do a shadow kick, and you just hold down the button for a little bit longer, you can build up into this Prowl mode that makes you a little bit darker, and the way it works is that anytime you walk on an enemy, it does damage, roughly 24. Now, the reason I don't like this is that I just don't find moves like this to be very appealing. I don't know what's the deal with moves that, make you walk onto an enemy and directly be in their face and doing this really, I guess, kind of crappy amount of damage. I just don't really see what's beneficial about it, but it does work in a sense. If you do have the ability to maybe move your pointer finger around to click the actual fighting buttons and throwing traps and stuff like that, it can be beneficial since you are a melee character, and if you're able to hit people, it does kind of stack up for a lot of damage. You put a trap, put that on, just do it. You can do an insane amount of damage. The thing is, I just don't think a lot of people play like that. I don't think there's a lot of people that will hold down O and then continuously try to attack with the other buttons just because maybe they haven't done it before, or they just don't want to, because you have to hold down the button. It's not like you can like let it go. That was my first mistake when I was first using this. I thought I was going insane. I thought this move fucking sucked really bad, but no, you have to hold down the button. I just don't think most people play like that. I guess you can put your thumb in like a position where you can like move over to square, but like again, it just makes it very awkward for playing for some people. And with it, I just don't really like it that much. Again, it can work, and sometimes, even when you do the attack on enemies and you're swiping, sometimes that damage doesn't even get added on. I just don't really like moves that do this, because it just doesn't really seem that beneficial if I'm just kind of forced to kind of do nothing. To make up for that last move and make it a little bit more viable, we have 9 lives and Out of the Shadows. The reason being is, for one, we get more health, 65 to be exact, and that's always nice for a melee character, we're always going to be taking the most damage, so just anything is always useful. Then we also have Out of the Shadows, which is directly tied to Prowler mode. The way this works is that anytime you get out of Prowler mode, you get to now do a miniature explosion that does 72 damage and also knock back enemies. Again, makes it better. Now, is it something that's like directly helping with Prowler mode itself? Not really, it's more like an after effect, but it still makes it at least somewhat viable because, anytime you do Prowler mode, you get out of it, you push back all the enemies. If you hit everybody and no one's near you, you can set up another one and do the same thing over and over. If you got the explosion with your traps, it's just so many explosions you can do now. Or just like launch ups. You got the explosion with the traps, if you take it. Then you have the soldier from the top that does the dash to launch enemies up. Now you have this that launches enemies sideways. Like, you have a lot of things. You can even pick the other one from the top path too, and that's still kind of knocks people around. Like, there's a lot of knockback with this guy, and it's pretty fun. The only thing that I kind of wish that Prowler mode had was, like, invisibility. Anytime a cat's, like, prowling around, even if they're not trying to be sneaky with it, that's their intention, to be, like, invisible and trying to, like, sneak up on their thing. And you still get hit in Prowler mode, which is really weird. I don't mean, like, hit in the same, like, you know what I mean, but, like, they look at you, and I find that kind of weird. So I'm hoping there's some type of thing like that in the future, or you're invisible until you get hit or until you punch or something like that, because I think it would make it a lot better. Now for the top path, we have the Shadow Combat, which is going to be dealing with our kicks. First one is Dark Magic and Black Cat. When it comes to this path, there's nothing too crazy about it. The first thing we get is that we get longer kicks, and then the second thing we get is that we do more damage with our kicks, doing up to 72. And that's it. Nothing too special about this one. It's still pretty cool to see, I really do like the kick, since it does a lot of damage and now doing more damage, blah, 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 blah. It's pretty good. And that's really all I have to say about it. Then for the bottom one, we have the Prowler path, which is going to be dealing with Prowl, where we have Shade Steps and Bumps in the Night. Even though I've been shitting on Prowl and everything about it, I can't lie. This path does somewhat well to make it a little bit better. The way it works is that anytime you walk around in Prowl, you put footsteps that do 10 damage. Then they do 13 when you get the second ability, and with it, it's pretty cool. For the reason that I think I kind of like when Trap Shadow does this, and that is just apply a lot of damage at one single time. You can do a lot of things, and this footstep kind of helps with it. You can walk on enemies with Prowl, that does like 20, then you can put these footsteps down that do 13 now, then you can hit enemies with just swiping at them, and then you can also throw a trap at them that does 29. There's a lot of damage that you can flow onto one single enemy, and I honestly can't lie, it's pretty cool to do that. I don't really see a lot of characters that really do that. It's just like, is a bunch of damage afflicted to one guy. Now obviously with a melee character, it's a little hard to be like that just because you're going to be hitting a lot of things, but with the footsteps, if you make a great line and they're chasing you and shit like that, I guess they can take a little bit of chip damage, and it's somewhat safer than, again, running upon an enemy that they can see you and just taking a bunch of damage if you're not able to, press the attack button at the same time. So, you know what? I enjoy it. I like it. And I don't think it's the greatest. I still think the top one's better in damage-wise and practicality, but with the Soul Gem, I think you'll see why this one's a little bit better too. And that name being the Living Shadow. The Living Shadow does exactly what I wanted Prowl to do. Make you go invisible. And the reason I see why now that they didn't let you do this beforehand is because it's kind of broken. Listen, when you're invisible, like I said before, with being able to apply a lot of damage onto a single enemy and just absolutely mollywop somebody, it is super fun. When you have so many things that knock down enemies and allows you to get a free Prowl off, it is super cool just to see yourself just run up to an enemy and absolutely smoke him with the footsteps, the traps, you slashing at them, diving, whatever the fuck you have. Whatever moves you get, just absolutely laying upon them as they just stand there and take it like a bitch. Because they don't know where you are. and that's pretty cool. Obviously, my version of, attacking and then getting out of Prowler mode is a lot more fair, but at the same time, this is just a lot more fun. Again, just throwing shit, hitting shit, and for people that can't, for some reason, like hit the attack button or the special button at the same time, because, whatever, you have complications or you just are not flexible with your fingers, that just makes it nicer because it makes it practical. It makes it like, yeah, I can use this, it can do damage, and it doesn't immediately just get me killed. Now, there is still some times where an enemy's winding up and they're still going to continue the attack. It's not like they stop after you go invisible, you get hit and stuff like that, but overall, it's a great move. And it makes Prowl an actual good move. Because again, you got the explosions now, you have the footsteps, if you go with the footsteps, and if you don't even have the footsteps, you have a really long kick that does a lot of damage, and you're just doing it for free because they can't see you. So, it's a great move. But with that all said, we are done. We have taken a look at everything that Trap Shadow had to behold, and now there's only one thing I have to do left, and that give you my honest rating. And honestly, Trap Shadow is a really great character. Top path-wise, or the top half of him, is pretty great. I like everything that was there. I like the little traps, I like the pass, I like the soul gem. Even when you go to the bottom path, the only thing I really had to criticize was Prowl. But by the end of it, with the soul gem, even if you don't even go with the bottom path, I think just having that invisibility makes Trap Shadow a pretty good melee character, and a pretty fun one to use. So, overall, I think I'm going to have to give Trap Shadow a solid 5 out of 5. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Honestly Rated today. Let me know what guys you want to see next, and also let me know what do you think about Trap Shadow in the comments below. If you want to see some more Honestly Rated in the future, these come out every single Saturday, but if you want to really stay up to date, subscribing and liking would help me out the most. Another thing too is that if you want to watch some more Honestly Rated that I made in the past, well, hey, I got a good solution for you. There's a big playlist on your screen that has every single one there, so don't mind checking it out if you really want to. And yeah, thank you guys for watching all the way through, just one more time. And I hope to see you and everybody else in the next one. Peace.